welcome to Rising. We're back with another stellar show for you today, and I'm joined at the desk by Ameshia Cross. Ameshia, it's wonderful to see you.
Always glad to be here. It's so exciting. I love what you've done to the book.
Yes, our new set design, our new music. Isn't that exciting?
It is. I'm like, there's so many changes happening in cable news and changes happening here too. I'm loving this background though, like seriously, beautiful colors.
Well, thank you for your
endorsement. It compliments
endorsement.
me just perfectly.
Yes, it does. Well, we'll get into the big news of the day. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and also Senator Chuck Grassley say that they've been contacted by a whistleblower who claims that as Vice President, Joe Biden allegedly engaged in a bribery scheme with a foreign national. In a letter, Comer confirmed he has subpoenaed the FBI and demanded the Bureau produce a document that allegedly contains evidence of an exchange of money for policy decisions.
Some Republicans are already floating impeachment over the allegations. Let's watch.
It absolutely would. In fact, it doesn't have to be a high crime or misdemeanor because the Constitution specifies that impeachment lies for treason, bribery, or other high crimes or misdemeanors. Bribery is explicitly noted in the Constitution. And I got to say, the evidence, not only against Hunter Biden, but the evidence against Joe Biden being complicit and profiting from this corruption is growing and growing and growing.
I'm glad he said it's growing rather than like it's overwhelming or it's persuasive, because obviously we haven't even seen this piece of evidence. I don't know what more to really say about it. Obviously, I agree with Representative Comer, Senator Grassley, that we should have access to whatever law enforcement has. If this document exists, yes, they should turn it over. We should learn what any and all whistleblowers may have told law enforcement about the Bidens. I think there are a lot of questions about whether the investigation so far have been handled correctly. We have heard from whistleblowers who say, we're ready to talk. Former business associates of Hunter Biden saying we're ready to talk. Was the FBI interested? Are they ultimately trying to, are they ultimately turning a blind eye to all the corruption allegations, and they're going to, slap him on the wrist, Hunter Biden, with drug crime or the gun charge that he's potentially facing, and overlook potential corruption? Now, again, we need to see the actual information to make a conclusion.
Exactly. There has not been anything presented yet. So I love your framing here, because I think on certain networks that I've seen, there have been people who talked about this in a way that made it seem like there was something that we should really be digging into, looking into, because they had some type of smoking gun. Because we have seen time and time again, the Republican Party, because of the multiple Trump impeachments, try to come after President Joe Biden. Him and Hunter are two separate people. Aside from being father and son, these are totally separate people. We know that there are conversations about Burisma and how that job was gotten, what some of the conversations that Hunter had with leadership of various foreign countries happened to be, and his own private business handlings. Thus far, there has been no link between those conversations and President Joe Biden. So at the end of the day, as somebody who, and you know as well, Joe Biden has been in public life longer than both of us have been alive. This man, for the most part, has been extremely clean. Anytime you're in public life that long, most of us are like, our wheels start turning, because corruption does happen to be something that a lot of people get entangled in the longer they are in public office. But I would venture to say that if somebody has served as long as he has, and nothing major has ever come out about Joe Biden other than the flubs he's made himself when he gets in front of a mic sometimes.
Well, and the multiple sexual misconduct accusations, although
none of which have been substantiated in any real way. It is very confusing to me, or not, we have an election year coming up, that this is something that they want to track and chase instead of trying to appeal to a base that is largely dwindling across this country.
Well, wait a minute. I think it's being investigated. It should be investigated. Hunter Biden made some of his associates think that perhaps he had a direct line to President Joe Biden, the big guy in the messages. I agree with you that we haven't seen the evidence yet that Joe Biden is a willing participant, or the other piece of the puzzle has not come into focus yet. But I think it's perfectly all well and good to investigate it.
No, I'm not against them investigating. My argument is that they're going to investigate it in the same way that the Twitter files and a whole bunch of ramblings that Republicans have thrown out about Joe Biden is going to turn into a big nothing burger, as it always does, and that this is more of the same of them basically saying that once Joe Biden won in 2020, that they were going to continue down this road of trying to impeach this man. We knew that it was coming. We know that they're going to continue this conversation, and this is a waste of taxpayer dollars and time, in my opinion.
Well, Okay, I mean they're not. I mean they haven't actually. I mean the Democrats did impeach Trump twice. They haven't actually impeached Joe Biden.
And they actually did have evidence leading up to why he got impeached both times. Very clear evidence that was shown to the American people. Here we have allegations. We have a lot of sideways backdoor conversations.
But what if we're not seeing it because top law enforcement officials are partisans who support the Biden presidency and want to, slow roll any actual investigation into corruption?
If there was actually corruption to the extent that they are arguing that there is, or corruption in general, I believe that we have a nation of laws and a system and process that would be able to and would fundamentally stand against that. And at the end of the day, we have not seen this happen. We have not seen that there has been a method of our internal investigations to stop things around Joe Biden in terms of those types of investigations. We've heard it from the right, but there is no evidence that it's actually happened.
I mean, the right doesn't trust, frankly, they don't trust the FBI and other organizations like the FBI to handle these things properly when, what happens when the New York Post laptop story about Hunter Biden comes out? A bunch of former CIA and FBI people say this looks like Russian disinformation to us. Joe Biden uses that line in his debate with Trump to delegitimize the entire story and any inquiry into Hunter Biden by saying, no, they've said it's a Russian-planted disinformation. That all now turns out to be not true. The laptop is genuine. You can make whatever conclusions you want based on it. But the perception among Republicans is that the deep state is entirely in the Biden's corner, so they can't be trusted to look at this matter fairly.
If there wasn't such a close relationship between former President Trump and some of his allies with the Russian government, then those types of conversations wouldn't have been held.
What do you close? I mean, a lot of those allegations ended up, kind of like collapsing under scrutiny, right?
What ended up collapsing was the investigation into the laptop. Because, again, it was supposed to be the smoking gun that unraveled, that showed that Joe Biden had all of these illegitimate things going on, and that this was supposed to take down his White House. It didn't.
Yeah, well, right, it didn't. But the question is, did it fail to do that because law enforcement didn't take these accusations seriously enough because they're partisans who are against Trump and for Biden?
It failed to do it because there was no there. You can't create evidence that doesn't exist.
Well, okay.
Unless you're the
fail to look at. Well, okay. Anyway, so you think this is a political loser? That this is not a useful inquiry for Republicans to go down in terms of running a campaign against Biden?
Absolutely. Now, and I would argue that in the two Trump impeachments, those were also political losers because the general public, Republicans did not stop voting for or supporting Donald Trump, even though he got impeached twice. This isn't going to actually lead to an impeachment, and it's not going to move moderate or Democratic-leaning voters anyway. So the people who are going to vote for and support Donald Trump or the Republican Party are going to support him anyway. The people who are going to support Joe Biden are going to support him anyway. We know historically that these do not change voter patterns. So at the end of the day, yes, I do think there's something to be said about investigating impropriety. I will always be for that. However, the idea that this is going to change an electoral cycle, I think is completely asinine. Sometimes the witch hunt against, the perception that there's a witch hunt against Trump makes him at least more, raises his salience and makes him more of a martyr, and it kind of makes the fervor among his fans higher pitched. I don't know if that dynamic is true for Biden. Do you think it is? It hasn't been tested. I would argue that whenever it is foreseen that one party, regardless of who the party is attacking another, specifically to knock somebody off who those voters actually appreciate and want to see leverage, then at the end of the day, yes, you're going to hear that from both sides. I don't think that is a constituent argument just for Republicans. I think that if Joe Biden was to experience people who are, going after an impeachment, and that impeachment is something that raises the ire of media attention, then yeah, his people are going to dig in their heels, because essentially that's what people do. Unless there's something extremely egregious where lives are on the line, war monies and things like that's a different conversation. But this isn't that. So I think that his base would definitely go to war for Joe Biden. We know that there are people who are vouching for his policies. There are people who want to see the continuation. There are people who definitely believe that America is going in the wrong direction. And those individuals aren't here for continued impeachment conversations. They are caring about whether or not they can put food on the table and pay their rent. Those are their top priorities right now. Well, I agree. We have not gotten talk of impeachment is pretty premature, given we haven't actually even seen this document, this information. According to CNN, Comer has
fired off a corresponding subpoena to the FBI calling for all it's called an FD 1023 forms, including with any open, closed, or restricted access case files containing the search term Biden. So they're trying to get the information, and I expect we'll be hearing more about this in the future. It's a little premature to make any judgment about it now, but
Ted Cruz jumped the gun, per usual.
all right, we'll have more Rising right after this.